Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. This is Mark with the software Margill Loan Manager. Welcome to the webinar on what's new in version 5.4. Those of you who've assisted to these before, it's about 43 minutes, I guess. There's lots to cover, and I like going over what was in the old version and a few pointers here and there, things I see often when we give some training. So it's via YouTube. It's not live, unfortunately. I had to record this. We suggest if you're on your YouTube to put a 720 or 1080p resolution. You won't be able to ask questions. Unfortunately, it's not live, but you can send to your questions to support@margill.com. It is of course, it's recorded, so you can always come back and consult the webinar on our knowledge base, support margill.com, support knowledge base, and look under Margill Loan Manager right here. So it's about 45 minutes, as I mentioned. We're going to cover many things, everything that's new. Some of the items won't be relevant to you, but some will. So the best thing is actually to note the things that are relevant for you, and then you can dig deeper into this. And of course, if you need our help, we can help you out with implementation or how to set up various things. So there we have it. A couple of housekeeping things, key housekeeping items. We've noticed that people are sending emails either to me directly, to David, to Mario, to Kim, to other people at our company. What happens is these guys may receive the email, but they may not be in the office. They may be on a holiday. They may be traveling. So the best is always to send to support@margill.com. And if you don't hear from us within 24 hours, but anybody who's dealt with us, you know how responsive we are. It's more in the hour during business hours. Please call, because maybe the email went to spam, because we always respond very quickly. Of course, never more than 24 hours and even 8 hours, let's say, during business hours. You can still send me the email or to David or to whoever, to the marketing or technical or administrative people. But do send it to support@margill.com. You can CC somebody else if you want. How can we improve Margill? I'm sure we can improve a lot of things, but what I like to do is, what are your irritants? I like to just to send you or to call us and say, this is an irritant for me. You know, small little things sometimes can change the way you work with Margill. And we listen to you guys quite a bit, but really, if there are things you say, this is not a big thing, but can you change something? Hey, we'd love to do it if it's, quite not too complex. And if it is complex, then we'll see what this implies. So really, it's important for you to be proactive, and you say, well, no, they don't listen to me. Yes, we do. All right. So there we go. Those are my housekeeping items. So the game plan for this webinar, we'll look at what's available in the help documentation and the tools. I'm going to go over very quickly what's new in version 5.3. Then we'll go in detail with the major changes in 5.4. Our latest version is, I believe this is April 6th, 2022, maybe April 8th, I'm not sure anymore. Then we're going to cover finally some important features and some other stuff coming up in 5.4. If you've noticed, version 5.4 has been going on since February, and since then we've probably put on 6 or 7 versions. They're small updates, but we just keep it going before going on version 5.5. So 5.4 will be going on for a while anyways. Our knowledge base, I say this at every webinar, do consult the knowledge base. We have over 100 articles on how to do this and that. We have videos. You've asked us some questions. We often try to answer them by doing screenshots and really keeping these anonymous, of course. But we like documenting your special questions. There is a search engine, so you can type in keywords in the knowledge base under Margill Loan Manager, and you can get answers with that. I think it's not a perfect search engine, but it's pretty good anyways. Our white paper was updated, whatever was it, a year ago, something like that. If you're not an expert in interest calculations, if you're wondering what simple or compound interest is all about and what is the nominal rate versus the effective rate, do consult this paper. It had been published in Real Estate Law and Industry Report back in 2008. I keep this up to date when we learn new things, new interesting features, interesting things about interest. So it's a good read. Actually, it's not a good read, but anyways, you'll learn about everything about interest on that, from basics to more advanced fundamentals. The user guide, we are still on version 5.1. It's now over 1,000 pages, and version 5.4 is well on its way. It'll be available this summer, or let's say early fall. We're up to, I think, 1,300 pages now, so quite a big evolution. These things take a long time to do, so bear with us. But 5.1 already gives you 90% of what you need. Okay, so headlines only, what happened in version 5.3. There's a Salesforce API for borrower data. Again, for borrower data, we have an API for JSON and Excel files, what we call a hot folder. So the file gets deposited from your other information system. It goes to what we call a hot folder, and then Margill picks it up every 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, I think. But that was only for borrower data, for creating a new borrower, or for updating a borrower. In 5.4, we've evolved. You can also import banking data in bulk. So if you're using NACHA files in the US, or if you're working with Perceptech and our new partner here in Canada, I'll explain this later on, you'd be able to import banking data, of course, through the APIs, or if you don't have them, if you could import them via Excel instead of entering them manually. Automatic fees. You can have automatic fees by record type. So let's say one record type has fees of $10 or £10 or 10 euros or 10 Rand. You'd be able to, 10 Rand, that's not enough, 100 Rand. You'd be able to say some records or some loans are 10 and others are 25. Or you can create a custom field. These are $10 for NSFs and 25 for NSFs in this other case. So quite flexible. The administrator can rename certain fields in gray, and then even gray them out if you don't need them. For example, the file number, instead of calling it, for example, unique identifier 1, you could call it ABC Inc. ID or loan number or whatever you want to call it. Same thing with the borrower data. This could be, for example, a company number here, maybe a federal company number or birthday, or it could be date the company was founded on, etc. So quite useful, these things. Mandatory fields. I'm not sure if you knew this, but you can say that certain fields are mandatory. What was a pain with that is you create a new record, it's in draft mode, and I don't have the information on hand. So we added a special feature that says if it's in draft mode, well, the mandatory fields are not mandatory. It's only when you'll change it to active, you'll open up the file and you're missing something, you're missing the annual revenue, you'll have to put it in. All right. The admin user, if you had updated from version 5.2 to version 5.3 and you were trying to change a user, so add a new user, you'd be blocked because only the admin, ADMIN, as of version 5.3 for security reasons, was able to create new users and manage the users. Unless admin gives other administrators the rights to do this. Okay. You can give or withdraw rights for other users to import and update in bulk. So I don't want my normal, maybe my young employee to be able to mass import stuff into Margill. So you can give and take away these rights. More security reasons. This is a more security option, prohibiting users to access the internet from Margill. You don't want to create potential conflicts here and there. So that's something in terms of security. New logs and extraction of these logs to a JSON file. So logs can be created every single day. So every activity that happens in the software can be logged in these files. And there are some systems that can analyze these logs and see if there's anything irregular going on, some kind of trends, and also reports encryption, so the admin can set these up. This is under Tools, Settings, and there's a new tab called Security Settings as of version 5.3. A little more advanced here in the data window. When creating a loan, there's a new advanced option for interest only or fixed principal payments. You check the box, you say, I want these to be recomputed all the time. It's what we call a behavior. If you're already using it, you used to have to go through the payment schedule, add the behavior on line by line. Now you can do this directly when you're creating the loan. So a little faster. And for the US, we can now create NACHA files for EFT. And as of version 5.4, they can be encrypted. Some banks require that these files be encrypted. You'll probably need our help for that because the encryption is a little particular. Okay, now we'll get to version 5.4. Luckily for you, I will not go over these one by one. We're going to have slides for each one. This is just like a summary of everything we have. Okay, again, you can consult the website, consult the release notes under support, and I think it's the download button or something. Consult the release notes. You'll see they're very detailed. Automatic imports. So this is probably the most important change of the version. We want to automate as much as possible. As we mentioned in the version 5.3, we could have the Salesforce and the borrower update. As of version 5.4, you can now create loans and borrowers or update the data for loans and borrowers. So I know when people have a certain volume, what happens is they would either create them by hand, which is a pain, or they would import them through an Excel file. If your system is able to create those files, either JSON or an Excel file, you'd be able to directly import them in Margill. They would be imported automatically. You wouldn't have to do anything. Do consult the page that's called, this is online, it's a PDF, that's how it works. That's really important because there are so many subtleties that you have to know. And then let's go look at a little example here. So very quickly, your CRM or your information system produces a file. It creates it, it dumps it in a folder in JSON or Excel format. Of course, you had mapped this file to say what corresponds. This field in my Excel or in Margill. So there's this, what we call a mapping. And the file is now, as I mentioned, we say this is a hot folder. The data is either updated. If the loan with a unique ID already exists, data will be updated. If the borrower already exists with a unique identifier, it will be updated. If it does not see this unique ID for the loan or the borrower, it will create a new borrower or loan and associate these together. Also, we don't have many people using this method here, but if you have a system that feeds the new transactions when payments are made, and you don't have the future already set up in Margill, which I don't recommend. If you don't have what we call due payments, but you simply have, this is my latest payment, you'd be able to have a system feed the new transactions directly to the results table. But this does not change it from a due payment to a paid payment. This would be more with electronic funds transfer, if you use NACHA or the providers in Canada, and we're probably going to develop for other countries as time goes on. The line status can change from due to paid with electronic funds transfer. But these new transactions, it's really adding new payments, adding new principal, adding new fees, or whatever. All right. Very important, the error logs. Especially when you start working on this, you'll have lots of errors at the beginning because of mapping this and that. So it's really important to consult the error logs to make sure that you adapt your existing system so that it fits properly in Margill, proper fields and all that kind of stuff. The date format is important, of course. It has to be an ISO format. And multiple APIs can be used at the same time if needed. Okay, and this is a little example here. And we'll use a picture instead. So you have a website where somebody can apply. So Julius Lee or a company is applying, or an employee is applying for a loan. They apply with all the information that you require, employee number, whatever. You can also, of course, upload documents to your internal loan origination platform. The loan is approved or it's refused, because here your employee will receive an email or however your system works, saying, hey, Julius Lee applied, here's his information. I either approve it or I refuse it. If it's approved, it can go directly to Margill. There's my Julius whatever, is created. So this is almost in real time. When the person approves here, there are now the options in Margill to instantly, more or less 2 minutes, to include your new loan into the software. So quite interesting. We do, once in a while, we do create websites with these loan applications and the approval process. It's stuff we do. You're better off if you're doing it. And then, of course, we can guide your developers if need be, so that the data flows from your app to Margill directly. So you can consult us for this. Other things, integration with Salesforce, import and export various data, Margill data, balances, amounts due, whatever, via Salesforce. It's an automatic process versus API, and automatic reports. So if I want to import data, I would use the Salesforce here, the sync. If I want to export data, then I would use the automatic reports. And notice we have a little button here that says export to Salesforce. And there's documentation on this. There's detailed documentation on this. Be careful here. We only can import data that's linked to the borrower, not to the loan. So I cannot create a new loan with Salesforce. If you want to use Salesforce and create new loans and borrowers in Margill, you would actually go through a JSON file right here, create and update, either a JSON file or an Excel file. So your Salesforce would create, your experts would create the Excel or JSON file. And so we wouldn't even use the Salesforce API, but our JSON and Excel one. You have to work with Salesforce experts because it's not always easy knowing what's a field and all that kind of stuff. So you work with these guys, with a Salesforce expert, and of course we can help you out with that also. I mentioned there's a new feature that allows you to recompute principal, interest, and fees to give a balance of 0 or X at the end. For example, let's say I had a loan for $25,000 or whatever. Initially, when I create my loan, it'll be a payment of $2,201 at 20 cents. If I checked this behavior here in the payment method, add behavior, what'll happen, it creates this extra behavior that says always recompute my payments, no matter what happens above, recompute my payments. So initially I lent out $25,000. I lent out another $10,000 in March, April, May 2022 for $10,000. So my new payment becomes $3,228. Had my rate changed and I didn't add this payment, then my payment would have increased. This is optional, of course. Often in contracts, when the guy pays $2,201, they expect to pay $2,201. I wouldn't want to have the payments change every time there's a minor change. If he didn't pay here, for example, then my payment would have gone, or here, if this was an unpaid payment, my payments would have gone up here. So you have to really, this feature is really if you need this specifically. Okay, but a quite useful feature, especially if you're using variable interest rates. You can now send SMSs in bulk through the main window. So you select the loans or the records, right click with the mouse, and you can now send an email or an SMS with a template. So you select your template. Dear John, don't forget that blah, 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 blah. So quite practical. It's on a subscription basis. There are costs. Our partner is called Folio Median. If you want, we can give you the information on how to contact these people, how it works. The service is available in the US and Canada, in Great Britain, in France. It's in most countries in the world anyways. The prices will vary, of course, depending on where you're located, because our local partner works with a company in South Africa or in England or wherever. So the prices will vary, of course, depending on where you are. And as we know, SMSs, of course, are read a lot more than emails, and they can't go to spam. So they really don't have an excuse saying, Dear John, a payment is coming up in 48 hours. Make sure you've got the money in your bank account. There's not much of an excuse anymore with SMSs. And you can even, I believe you can send it to a borrower and co-borrower, and even send yourself a copy if you want. You'll pay a couple of extra cents, of course, but it's interesting at first to see that you'll receive hundreds, but you can send it to somebody else also. Alerts, same thing. Well, I got ahead of myself. You can also send alerts via SMSs. The other ones, when I covered this one, it was really manual, more or less, in bulk. But here, these are automatic SMSs like we have with what we call line statuses. So, Dear John, a payment is coming up in 48 hours. Make sure you've got the amounts. Or, Dear John, your payment bounced yesterday or the day before. Please call me ASAP so we can take an arrangement. You can also send for record alerts. This was something that people requested. In a record, you can create an alert specifically for a record, such as don't forget to obtain the annual financials, or to make sure the person has paid their insurance. So before, it was really a pop-up in Margill where the users would get the information. But if you have somebody else in your company who actually manages the follow-ups, you would be able to say, here, send it to this other email, so the alert would go out to somebody else, or an SMS. So outside of normal Margill Loan Manager users. And you can create a template with the information. We've added 2 new column fees, so we now have a total of 6 column fees. I know some of you said, I have to combine my fees. I have so many fees, I have to combine them. But I always tell people, don't do too many fees. Fees are a pain to manage. We have 6 of them. There are also line fees, but try relaxing on your fees. Not too many. Less is better. Less work for everyone. Security. This was already, I believe, in version 5.3. But if somebody tries entering the password more than 5 times, it'll be blocked. So admin must then solve the issue. We now have MFA, multi-factor authentication. Is it authentication or authentication? Authentication, yeah. The admin must activate this. It's time-based one-time password, TOTP. So you have to get on your mobile, on your smartphone, you get either a Microsoft or a Google multi-factor authentication tool. And the way it works, when you log into Margill, it'll ask you for a code. You pick up your phone, and you get your verification code. So again, it helps with security. Security is now so important. Main window. We now have a color filter. We've had colors for quite a while, but now if you notice in the new version, you have a new filter right below owner that says, I only want to see my red loans or my purple loans or whatever. And you can also label them. So instead of being called red, you could call it urgent, or green is all good. I don't like Christmas trees, but limit the number of colors. But now you can rename them. And if I'm not mistaken, you can even have these in reports. So show me if it's urgent, medium purple, all good, whatever. You can have all that information. A second change in the main window is a select all feature. So some of you have long custom fields And it was difficult to actually say I want to pick up 25 of my 50 or 45 of my 50. So now you can say select all and unselect the ones you don't want. It saves a bit of time. Some of you will like this very much. Custom record statuses. By default, Margill includes draft, pending, active, on hold, closed, archive, bad debt. Now you can add your own. For example, one I see quite often what people like is one called bankruptcy. I know the loan is not bankrupt, but your person is bankrupt, but I would consider this loan to be bankruptcy. It is no longer an active loan. It is a bankrupt loan. So even if you were to name one called, have one called active number 2, it would not be an active file. It is an active number 2 file. So it's not an active file. No matter what you call it, it's not active. It's something else with the same name. So be really careful from that perspective. You can also hide them. If you say, I never use on hold, hide it. You can also move them. You say, I never use pending, or I want active to be on top. You can move active on top. You cannot delete our line statuses, our record statuses, but you can delete your own. You've created bankruptcy. You go, I don't need this anymore. I can delete it. I believe you can only delete if nobody else is in bankruptcy mode. You'll see anyways. Advanced mathematical equations, a very powerful module for those who have specific needs. The person is probably listening to this webinar right now. It's really I can multiply this by this, divided by something else, and if the result is something, you can say and if equations. So sale price is equal less than 50,000, then result is 1,000 for this other field, which I called tax, for example. Or otherwise, if the principal is less than the security value or less than 50,000, then it's 500. Otherwise, it's this in all other scenarios. So it can become quite powerful for analysis and for extracting data from Margill based on what's happening in the loan. In the transaction report, we now have two. If you know the transaction report, it's how to pick up transactions individually. We have two new options. In the payment date, you could say, I ignore the true payment date grace. Because by default, if I had a grace date, it would have picked up that date. So if you say, I don't care about it, I put a date in there, I want to ignore it. So you can do that. Or you can go in and say, I only want to use the true payment date grace. So if nothing happened, if I have no date in the grace field, in the grace column, should I say, then nothing would show up. Again, more or less advanced options. The overnight reports, I'm not sure if you started using these from version 5.3. You can now create reports automatically every day, every 10 minutes if you want, once a month, whatever. When people ask, they say, hey, I love the feature. Can you have them send the report to me by email? I don't want to have to go to that specific folder and pick it up, so you can get it by email. If we create, so the Margill team, if you want to send out invoices automatically, the system can now do it, but you will need our help. So we have to create a statement for you, and then you can send these out automatically to borrowers and co-borrowers by email. At this point, you cannot do this on your own. You'll need us to create the statement, and we enter this into the software. Eventually, you'll be able to do it. When exactly, I'm not quite sure. But right now, we can create this for you. It could be quite useful. In the accounting entries, this is a bit more advanced. If you are using participation loans on a percentage basis, not on an amount basis, we're now able to, in the accounting report, to bring it directly to your GL in Sage, Akamba, and QuickBooks or CSV text or Excel, we could use the participation percentage. So you've got 3 participants, one at 33%, one at 66%, one I'm missing, whatever, one at 25%, I'll keep it simple. So what the system would do, it would create 3 transactions. For my payment of 1,000, it will give 330 to one guy, 5,000 to the other guy, and the remaining to the third person. And this would all go to your accounting system. So that's called creditor participation percentage. This one is a bit more advanced. We've created a concept called master and affiliate loans. And I'm sure the concept will evolve over time. And some of you will say, hey, I like the master and affiliate concept. Right now, it works. You can, let's say you have a master loan. And this is difficult to explain because I know most of you guys, it's really in a specific province that they're using this. I have a loan where I have an EFT with only one payment of 1,000, but I split my loan into two because there are different rates. So $50,000 loan, 30,000 in one case, 20 in the other case. There are different rates. So I have to manage these from an accounting perspective separately. But I only want to have one EFT, one electronic funds transfer for my master loan when my payment is a due payment, when my master loan automatically becomes a paid payment or unpaid, my subordinate or my affiliate loans will also automatically change from due payment to paid or unpaid. So it's a little advanced, but if you understand what I'm talking about, you'll like this feature. But the implementation will take you a while because you have to create the links between these three loans. This is a really advanced feature. I'm sure not many people will use it. It's a sub-creditor. So in this case, I have Fund ABC and Equity Fund. And within the sub-creditor module, I have two it's split up. So Fund ABC is split up by CCC and BBB at 50-50. So again, not for everyone. We now have a full database search in the software. It's still in beta mode because, we have to see if there are still quirks in there. So you could search the record, the borrower, the creditor, and the notes, and you have all your results here in each of the tabs. So I searched for John. So John is in my borrowers. He might not be in the notes. He may not be anywhere else. So I can find John wherever I'm looking for him. Of course, this is more important for larger databases. And you could also search for a date, even a monetary or a rate. So I could say, show me everybody that has an amount of $111.11. Why would I do that? I'm not sure, but you could find it. I'm looking for a specific transaction. Advanced queries. I hope you're using advanced queries. They're really important. What people used to do in the older versions, they used to have to go select the loans and then produce the reports. With advanced queries, which has been in the software for like 3 years, I guess now, you say, I create a new query that's called whatever. I only want active loans, which are at this specific date or that are active and of a specific type. That's been in there for a while. If you are sending invoices or statements, you could say, only include loans or mortgage or whatever where there is a due payment in the next calendar month. If there's no payment, there's no due payment, don't send this out. So you don't have to sort them and find the ones which have a payment coming up next month. That's more for sending out invoices. So it could be for the next month. If your billing cycle is every week, then it would be next Sunday plus 6 days. And if you're billing every 2 weeks, then it could be next Sunday plus 13 days. Of course, you have to try these things, make sure it corresponds to what you need. Bulk transaction import, not a very important thing, but in the older versions, when you imported what we call other line statuses, we had to have a payment equal to 0. We forced a payment of 0. Whoops. Now, since there's an option in Margill where the administrator can say, I force you to 0 or I don't force you to 0, we don't need this constraint anymore, so we took it out. Okay, so what one of our clients is using, they say, I want to import line fees. You can't import line fees through an Excel file. So when we say, hey, use other, and you have other called fees and other called fees paid. So then you'd have a positive amount and a negative amount, or a negative amount and a positive amount. Again, quite advanced things. The Control-Alt-Shift-F12 shortcut. There are, I think, over 40 shortcuts in Margill. You can access all the shortcuts with F2. So I don't know them by heart, but the one called Control-Alt-Shift-F12, you select your lines in the payment schedule, and in the previous versions, they all became, you had the choice of column paid. Paid, 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 paid. But now we've added a new feature called unpaid. So I want these due payments to become unpaid. I can call them unpaid Visa, unpaid payment, etc. Although in theory, you shouldn't use this shortcut very much because you should always using the post payment tool, or if you're using electronic funds transfer, it automatically changes from due payment to paid payment or unpaid. How are we doing for time? All right. So twice monthly payments. It's funny how these 3 slides were made from one specific client. It's kind of funny. So if you were, for example, initially creating loans on a monthly basis, you create your initial schedule with monthly payments. Your client calls you up, your borrower calls you up, he goes, listen, I want to pay twice a month. In the old version, it was actually payment set on the 1st and 15th. You had no choice. But in a new version, you can now have your payments on the 5th and the 20th, etc. If you already had twice monthly payments, you could set up the dates, but it would use your old payment frequency. So if you're using twice monthly, it was initially on the 1st and the 15th, then you added new payments. These could be on the 5th and the 20th. So they changed the payment cycle. This is when you add a line or lines at the end or with the right mouse click. Multi-currency, for those of you who use the multi-currency module, we used to have to import the exchange rates manually, not import, but actually enter them manually. Now you can update them via an Excel sheet. It's a very simple Excel sheet. I think it's one column, that's all. Or maybe 2 columns, yeah, for the correspondence. You'll see, just click on the question mark and you'll see how it works. And eventually, I'm sure we'll add an automatic import of the exchange rates, but there's not much request for that anyways. Okay, we're nearing the end, which is good. We still have another 10 minutes because I want to give you a couple of hints here and there. Little things I don't have a slide for. The logs were improved. This is a fun one also. Some of you will import the results table to Excel. And the way it worked previously is when you exported, you had the entire 45 or 50 columns in the Excel sheet. If you don't need all these columns, you can simply hide them, and I'll show you how you hide them afterwards. And if you change the order, we're now going to export only those columns, not the 45 or 50 columns. We fixed the expected payment amount in certain specific situations. It doesn't affect many people. Interest only and fixed principal. There were a few little quirks in there when it's automatically recalculated. We fixed a few little things. We've added larger default text sizes. When you create some of these templates, it was a really small, 7 points. It was so small. I think it's now 11 or 10. It's just nicer. Extra space for information in the columns. Those of you who do big amounts, you can now put in those information lines, you can put up to 9.9 billion. It was 999 million. I wish I was that rich. In the window, there's a what's new window. In the main window, what's new, you could say do not show again. We also have subversions availability and alert. Don't forget, version 5.3, we probably had 10 versions of version 5.3, but we don't announce these small versions, these intermediate versions. So not to bug people, now all we have is a subversions available, take it or leave it. It's not urgent. If you want to update it, go ahead. If we had fixed a major bug, then we would have said, hey, this is a critical update. So if I were you, you download 5.4, you see the alert saying, oh, there's a new version available. We don't say what's new in there, but it's up to you to download or not. You don't have to download it. Maybe once a month, once every 2 months. It's up to you. And it depends on the complexity of your IT people. In small companies, it takes 5 minutes to install, it's done. So small companies will do it more often than governments and larger organizations. Coming up in May, so we are now going to have an electronic signature integrated in Margill. I'm sure lots of you will be very happy about this. It's with the partner called EverSign. We decided to go with these guys because they were quite responsive. They're based in Germany and England. They're not in Russia. We're okay. So EverSign, the way they work, they're on a monthly basis. It's very simple, easy format. You pay on a monthly, depending on the volume you have. It's a minimum monthly fee, and you produce it. That's it. And the way it works, you will have you produce your what's it called, your contract with the merge document, and there'll be a place where you configure it to put in your signature, and there'll be a button that says e-sign. An email goes out to your customer. They'll receive the email. They open up, you know how it works anyways. They open up the document. It gets signed. You get an email. It gets to the EverSign webpage or the portal. You can consult the document there. And we're now working on putting it back into Margill as an attached document. So it'll be quite cool. It'll save a lot of time. In Canada, we will have a new partner called VoPay. Right now it's with Perceptech. Pretty much the same price as Perceptech, but an added benefit is the Interact e-transfer. So you can send money to your customers. I believe it's up to $25,000, something like that. But that's to discuss with the people at VoPay. And of course, it does pre-authorized debits. It works both ways. Don't forget a couple of things here. I'm just going to go down here. I'm done, except I like giving you a few little pointers, stuff I see when I give training. I go, why aren't you using these things, guys? So in the main window, I often see the old demo where people are using the same columns as displayed in the main window that were there from the demo age. So, hey, you don't want to see something in the phone number, get rid of it. So you go to the user settings, tools, user settings, and you go to displayed fields. You hide whatever you don't need. So it's critical because the more fields you have, the longer it is to load. So diminish the number of fields you have. You'll save a bit of time, seconds. I mentioned also in the results table where you have 40 some odd columns, you don't need all these columns, hide them with this icon. You also have the bigger and smaller. We're all getting older. You can make the spacing, the characters bigger. When you open up a loan, on the top, you'll see the Margill ID number. You might see the person's first name, last name, company name. If you don't need all this, if you only deal with companies, we don't need the person's first name. You simply put in the company and maybe your own loan ID, not the Margill ID. So it's a lot more visual. That's been in there for a while anyways. I mentioned the font size in the results and main window. Always use the post payment tool to quickly update payments to paid, unpaid, partial. Do not go into each loan, open up the loan, paid, save, close. It's ridiculous, especially if you have thousands of loans. Nobody does it when you have thousands of loans, but smaller clients will open up, save, and it's a pain. So use the post payment tool. Even better, use the electronic funds transfer with our partners. It's so much easier. I think most of you now know what we call global changes. So you want to add a new field in the database. You can upload everything via an Excel sheet directly to Margill. Of course, now with the new APIs, when new data or data changes, it will be automatically updated. I mentioned before the queries, the advanced queries for reports. Use advanced queries. They're really important. In Canada, with Perceptech and with VoPay coming up, there is a rejected transactions report. So you click on that, you'll see what was rejected, and automatically you'd be able to say the payment was due, we assumed it was paid, and automatically it would become unpaid. An email or an SMS can go out. The fees can be charged all by clicking submit or whatever. So whether you have 100 rejected transactions, they can all be updated in a second. take advantage of the overnight tasks. If you come in the morning and Margill takes a while to pop up, it's because it's doing a bunch of things as you launch it the first time. If you run the overnight tasks, it recomputes totals, it'll do backups, it'll generate alerts, all while you're sleeping. So when you come in the morning, you'll save a lot of time if it takes a while. And you can also use the overnight tasks to produce reports automatically. This is getting old. I have to update this, but I think most of you are now, when we do document merge, you're no longer using rich text format, you're using docx. The text editor in the docx module is much better than the RTF. It's not perfect. We're trying to improve it, but it's the way it is. Use docx. It's a lot better than RTF. Something I haven't seen often is where you can block your users from changing historical transactions. You may have a rule in your company that says you should not be allowed to change anything that's older than 30 days. So why leave this open where there's a chance of error? Why not say, I only allow one person to go back historically and change stuff? So everybody else should be blocked after 7 days from the current date, or 1 month, or 30 days, or whatever. So I really like to see this a lot more often, where you block the historical transactions. You can always unblock users, but this should be used a lot more, less chance of errors. We also mentioned compulsory fields, very important. I must put in the person's annual revenue, so make it a compulsory field if you need that data. We mentioned, of course, automatic emails and SMSs X days before a payment is due or after a payment bounce. I also want to repeat line statuses. I won't go over this, don't worry. Line statuses are really critical. I've seen some instances where somebody takes a line status called other, see here, other X, and they call it paid by Bitcoin. Other will remain other. It will not pay interest. It will not pay column fees. It will not pay principal. It's going to go to this other column. So even if I call other X, I call it to paid by Bitcoin, it will not pay these guys. So do not respect if a line is a due payment, a paid payment, unpaid, if it's a principal, or if it's something else. So you have to respect the nature of these things. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's take half an hour and look into this. That's it. Yeah. Don't forget, Margill is also available as a service on the cloud. If you're working from home, we all know that VPNs are hopeless with Margill. There's too much information flowing. We could host it on Azure temporarily or on a permanent basis. It's a monthly payment. The advantage is we have very high security to Microsoft Azure. There's a duplicate if there's a bomb that goes on the center. There's a second one. We do the backups, high security, and you can access data anywhere from margill.net. And I mention it, and I mention it, and I mention it. Training is key for maximum efficiency. We offer remote and on-site training nowadays, since we can now travel, which is nice. So there you have it. Release notes are on the website. You can update to version 5.4. This is a little shortcut, margill.com/get. You've got questions, call us or email. Email is always better because we're in and out of the office these days. I think we're 2 days a week at the office, that's all. If you have any questions, we can answer them in our knowledge base, of course, anonymously. So there you have it. Feel free to contact us if you have anything. And I hope you enjoyed the webinar. And please let me know if we can help out in any way. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks.